The mistakes 20 years ago is the next day they're off, and then Wednesday, and all of a sudden you're wondering why the practice isn't as, whereas the time after the game is more valuable than the day prior to the game. Like, we can do more on Saturday and be just fine for Sunday. But hurrying back, I've just found this is something that's worked pretty well, and yeah.
The Eagles have played a lot of one-score games, and they have the best record in the league in one-score games since the start of last year. Are there common threads that they?
Yeah, listen. We just talked about it. They're doing a great job with the turnover ratio. I think they've only given the ball away one time in the first 4 weeks. They're taking it away. They're special teams. They have the blocked punt last week, the blocked field goal, blocked extra point against the Rams. So all three phases are doing a good job. And that's one of the reasons they're the champion.
Sean, you talked about with JK and RJ how you changed it up a little bit, gave them series. You've told us about with receivers how sometimes you try to get them involved early to get them into rhythm. Does that apply to Evan Ingram, or is it more dependent on running the ball?
Yeah, I think listen. I think a lot of it is the script, and no, there's times where you definitely look to involve them, but we don't come off a game like last week and then look at who got touches. We're not playing the fantasy game. We're trying to win, and so sometimes I can recall over the years big wins against tough teams, and maybe a player like Graham or Mike Thomas didn't, and it's not intentional. Like, these guys are going to cloud Cortland. They're going to put their best corner on him at times, and so some of that is how that game unfolds.
You've known Vic a long time.
Yeah.
You guys try to fool each other now? Or?
No, I think there's great respect. He's from the same neighborhood as where my parents grew up. He went to the same high school as where my father went. My cousin taught him 6th grade math. And my first experience with Vic was when he was at Houston and I was at the Giants. We were both coordinators. And over the years, we've always stayed in touch. He does a great job. No, I think both of us, as we prepare with our staffs, are looking at the game plan, and will there be wrinkles? There always is, but it's a defense that does a great job of forcing you to be patient, and that's been pretty consistent, throughout his career. This isn't new for him. He's been really, really good.
Is he better at forcing you to be patient than other people?
Well, the structure, just with how they play, if you looked at the numbers from, a season full of numbers, we do the numbers after 4 games, but you take a whole season and you look at the passing numbers, yards per play, all of that, there's certain things that you have to be willing and ready to do.
Both obviously played a lot of big games, here before the NFL, but Philadelphia, this situation. Is there anything different that changes in your message?
I think the message is really the recovery and the focus on, getting ourselves physically and mentally ready to play a game. And so I think, outside of, I think the team understands the quality of opponent. They understand they're 4-0. All those things, they're well aware of. So, crowd noise is going to be important. It is typically when we're playing on the road normally.
Coach, with the tush push, have you ever thought about trying it yourself? Maybe why haven't you and other teams?
Yeah, there's teams I just finished watching Baltimore run a version of it against Philly, and we'll look for ways at times to run quarterback sneaks. I think it's really more of a philosophy in your quarterback, and then the time you want to. So they've been effective at it, and I said what I said the other day, just relative to the reasons that I wasn't against it, and I think a lot of people maybe misunderstood that, but it's a well choreographed quarterback sneak with a real strong athletic quarterback.
Sean, in terms of your execution in 3 phases, where's your trust level right now?
Say it again.
Where's your trust level in your team's ability to execute, particularly in the 3 phases generally?
Yeah, I mean it's better than it was a week ago, right? And so I respect the question, and yet it's a silly question. I mean, we're always looking for that utopia, that perfect game, right? And so there's certain things relative to trusting, all right, I'm seeing we're doing this well, maybe these things. So that's more scheme sometimes, and then maybe sometimes personnel.
I asked just because we don't get you tomorrow.
Go ahead.
Did you mean Quinn's fine, he'll play, or is?
Yeah, I respect the question, but he shows up on an illness, I'm not going to talk about it. And so I love that we don't have to talk about it tomorrow either.
I don't want to.
I know.
Coach, when it comes to Bo, what have you learned that he likes in the early parts of games to get
He likes tempo. Tempo to the line. Certainly, last week I think we had 2 or 3 third down conversions with tempo. When he's at the line with 26 seconds now instead of breaking the huddle with 8. So, and so we, you adapt because that's something that a lot of these college quarterbacks are, and reducing the verbiage and getting to where we can call plays with just one name, one syllable. Those are some of the things that have changed.
And you've talked about you can't always go tempo because sometimes it's...
Yeah, I may not want tempo. My defense might be tired. So if I'm going tempo, I want to be able to control that.
Hey, Sean, since your staff got here, there's only a handful of players that have more red zone touchdown receptions than Cortland, and I'm just curious what your impression of what he's really kind of improved on in that area.
I think he's got a handful of his traits relative to how he prepares is fantastic. He's strong with strong hands in traffic, and in the red zone there's generally traffic, and so it favors certain players. And then there's certain players, maybe it doesn't favor as much. But he's one of those guys, and we've seen a number of times where it's kind of covered, traffic, and yet he can high point a ball and catch it properly. I think that would be one of the big reasons.
There's been coaches talk about the K-balls now that are different for the kickers.
Yeah.
Has it gotten too easy to kick long field goals? Does that affect your strategy now late? Because you're in some of these. Does it affect strategy?
I haven't.
When play gets them into field goal position?
No, I mean, certainly forget the K balls and the field goals for a second. Obviously, the kickers are doing a great job, and look, they're breaking in the balls. I get it. But the 35 and the new kickoff has changed the starting field position pretty dramatically. We punted one the other day, went into the end zone. And, back then you used to be like, God, we missed our opportunity to down it. And I said, well, the ball comes out to the 20. That's like refreshing, And so, I just think that it is what it is. And I think that it certainly changed field positions quickly as it pertains to end of half, end of game. Your thoughts as a play caller on the 35 with 28 seconds compared to the 20, I think that's changed.
Sean, when you have a guy like Wattenberry that has multiple penalties in a game, what did you make of that? And where?
Well, I'm gonna come to his defense because there were a handful of them, and we never sent it into the league. But there were a few of them that, if you guys watch the tape, he's been playing well. There's a couple we can clean up ourselves. Being downfield on a screen or whatnot, but he's playing well.
With Benito, his pressure rate is, I think, over 30% right now. It's the highest of his career. What have you seen, or how have you seen him take the next leap there? Well,
obviously, there's that confidence thing we discussed, and past successful performance leads to confidence, and so his get off, he prepares. If we're at home, obviously it's easier. You're limited with what you do in the snap count, and then on the road he'll spend time. But yeah, I just think that that you can right in front of our eyes, we've seen a guy get continually better.
Sean, with you guys going more series for the backs last week, was that just indicative of how RJ's coming along to you? Was it just another
Well, and listen, I think both of those guys we're super excited about, and so and I think you can, I've said this a million times, I think you can feed two and feature two, and I think both were exceptional the other night.
Is that something you plan to or want to continue?
Yeah, I'd like to do more of that, yes.
They block 3 ticks and a couple.
I watched them.
They have a knack, or they have.
Well,
people
they're two different units. So the punt block the other night was just a little off center snap, but still a real good rush, A-gap rush. That resulted in a touchdown, and then the field goal units were the inside push, and they really, got 2 from LA. Really, it was similar to the Rams' finish was similar to our Chiefs' finish, aside from someone running 70 yards down the field for a touchdown, but the same type of push inside, and they've done a good job with that.
Coach, the Eagles are 15-1 in their last 16 home games. Is there something unique or special about their home field?
I think I've said this before. Generally speaking, and the really good teams probably play well at home. You follow me? And then the teams that aren't as good probably don't play as consistently well at home. So I think it's the chicken before it's a hard place to play, but it's a good team. It's a Super Bowl champion. So it's not unusual to have a home stretch like that. It's not unusual if you look at the Super Bowl champions in the past, for that team to have won all their home games. That's not unusual. So I think it's a credit to the team and the organization, and then couple that with a tough environment, and you got what you got. You have a Lombardi Trophy, and you have confidence and all those other things.
What did you think of Quinyon Mitchell coming out, and what kind of
Toledo? Yeah, we liked him. I tell you what, you can see the marked improvement from last year. This year, he stars the best receiver at times. He's got good length. He runs well. I mean, he's impressive on tape.
Sean, we talk about what quarterbacks like often, but in your I guess career, what have you learned about quarterbacks that understand what they can't do really, really well?
Look, I think that generally, and again, I've coached a lot, but I had one for a long time. So generally, I think we all kind of understand our weaknesses a little bit, to have gotten to where we're at, myself included. There's certain things that I struggle with, and I have to recognize that and then adapt. And I think that, guys that get to this league and get drafted, for the most part, especially at that position, understand that now they're all different, they're all very different, and but it's important to know the things they like and are confident in, and then give them those things, and then work on the other things, as you go.
Sean, Malcolm, Drew,